Awesome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to ModeShift's February membership meeting. Thanks for being here. My name is Grace Thomas. I'm on the ModeShift board this year, and happy to have you all here. We have Jeff here tonight, who's the City of Omaha's Vision Zero coordinator. We're going to pass it over to him to give us an update on the Vision Zero action plan the city's been working on putting together. We'll have plenty of time for questions, I think, but I just wanted to run through some events happening at ModeShift upcoming, just in case you all are interested in other stuff that we're putting on. So on Tuesday, the 28th at 7, the transit team is meeting. And on Tuesday, March 7th at 7 p.m., the bike team is going to have a meeting. Both of those groups have some exciting things going on. Walkability is meeting on Wednesday, March 8th at 7, and our next membership meeting will be Wednesday, March 22nd at 7. We're going to have Kevin Carter, also from the City of Omaha, talk about the city's bicycle pedestrian plan. So kind of doing a walkability, bikeability plan roundup, I guess, in the next couple of months. I think those are all of the updates we have. Hopefully you all got the newsletter today. If you're on some of those working groups, we're also going to be having a happy hour on March 16th at Rosskeller at 5 to try to do some in-person getting to know you. Thanks to Avon for pulling that together and getting it scheduled. Any other ModeShift announcements that I missed?
That's a pretty good roundup. Thanks, Grace. I think one thing around Vision Zero that I think almost everyone here knows this, but Vision Zero means we have a goal. The City of Omaha has committed to a goal of 0 deaths in our streets. And that's really exciting. And ModeShift actually helped push for that goal. And that led to the city hiring Jeff a couple of years ago. So it's exciting that we've had some progress on this front. And so we're interested to learn more about what's been happening. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add on to that, Grace. But
yeah, no, that's good. I think, Jeff, you came to one of our meetings when you first started back in 2021. So some of us have gotten a chat with you before. But yeah, we'd love to hear a status update on the action plan the city's putting together. And like I said, we'll leave some time for Q&A. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Jeff, to introduce yourself more and tell us about what's going on.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Again, yeah, my name's Jeff Sobczyk, City of Omaha's Vision Zero coordinator. And yeah, been asked to kind of fill you guys in on the status of our action plan process, which we officially started, I would say the end of September, early October, where we were giving our consultant their notice to proceed. So my plan was I've got just kind of a brief presentation I wanted to share with you guys. It's kind of, hold on 1 second.
I think you should be able to share now.
Seen anything?
Yeah, we can see your Google Drive tab, your Zoom tab.
Can't find my, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So I just want to give a basic overview of where we kind of started and where we're at right now, and just kind of fill you in on kind of the bigger picture items that we've been going through. So I'll kind of go over kind of the main points that we've been addressing, or I guess stages that we've been going through. Data analysis and review, that started right when we gave the notice to proceed for our consultants. So that took a very long time, where we just kind of did a data dump with them and they took several months to analyze that, review it, and get back to us, and kind of show what they found and kind of provide us some input on kind of how we should move forward. And then I'll talk about our technical advisory committee meeting, and then our focus area working groups, and then I'll give you kind of an update on where we're at with public engagement. So like I said, there's a significant amount of data, and we've shared this with our technical advisory committee. And I didn't want, there's a lot to go through, so I just picked a few things that I thought were interesting to share with the group. And all this is available on our website. So if you may have seen a lot of this, but again, I wanted to provide this for anyone that hasn't had it, and then kind of give you a broad overview explanation for some of it. So one thing I thought was interesting was, so speed is a significant factor in Vision Zero and getting to zero. And if it's shown that if you reduce speeds, it significantly increases the probability of surviving of a crash with a vehicle. So what we found with our local data, 65% of killed and serious injury crashes, they happened on streets that had 35-mile-an-hour speed limits or higher. And bike and ped killed or serious injury crashes were the same, actually a little bit higher on the 35-mile-an-hour realm. And 80% of killed or serious injury crashes happen on arterial roads, and more specifically on whoops, let's go back. And the same thing with bike and peds. Major arterial roads were a significant issue for them. So that kind of really shines a light on where we need to direct a lot of our resources, is those large arterials. So equity is a significant component to Vision Zero, and this is just one of many data points that we wanted to share with, but it kind of speaks to a national trend that unfortunately communities of color are disproportionately represented in fatal and serious crashes. And as the graph on the left shows, people that are white made up over 1,200 people were killed or seriously injured in the 5 years that this data was collected. So extremely high level of the white community, and then the Black community and the Hispanic community. It kind of goes down from there. But then when you look at kind of looking at as a percentage of the total population, you see Native Americans are ridiculously high as far as crash rate compared to their peers. And second there is the Black community, with which is pretty close to 2, which again, yeah, this is fairly common. I mean, this is common pretty much in every city that Vision Zero is trying to take an equity lens to.
Jeff, there's a question in the chat. What is a representation ratio?
So I will kind of get into that a little bit later on. And it's another graph that kind of better explains it. So I'll kind of hold off before I answer that, okay? So of all killed and serious injury crashes by intersection or segments, it's pretty much the majority are at intersections. So you've got pretty close to a 60-40 split. And more specifically, it's at signalized intersections that we see most of these killed or serious injury crashes. And this is going to kind of speak to that question and provide an answer. So these the crashes, this kind of breaks it up by mode share. So the percent on the picture on your left, the pie chart on your right shows the percent representation of what mode of transportation people use in the city of Omaha. So the blue, that is a vehicle, and 90.5% of the population have a vehicle, and that's how they get from point A to point B. Followed by the next closest mode of transportation would be walking. That's a little over 2%. Biking is 0.3%, and motorcycles 0.1%. So what we're looking at is overwhelmingly the vast majority of the population uses a vehicle. However, when you look at the killed and serious crashes by mode, there's this significant disproportion compared to who's actually out there. So we had 98%, close to 99% of the population that uses a vehicle. However, only 70% of those vehicle occupants were tied to a killed or serious injury crash. And when you combine pedestrian and bicycle, you're close to a little over 14%, whereas the mode share is not even close to 3%. So there's a significant difference between the two. And if you're a bicyclist, you've got more than a 10 times likelihood of being involved in a serious injury or a fatal crash. And pedestrians, it's a little bit less, but still concerningly high at 6 times. So moving on from the data, I just want to talk a little bit about our technical advisory committee. This is made up of a lot. I'll kind of go into who's actually involved with the technical advisory committee, but it consists of, we've got 9 technical advisory committee meetings scheduled throughout the year, and the TAC is pretty much the main engine that is kind of moving us through this process. And we're very intentional with how we wanted to build this out. We wanted to have a good representation of different advocacy groups, nonprofits, stakeholder groups, public agencies, as well as city departments, and as well as some business interests as well. So we've got, just for example, Keep Kids Alive Drive 25. You got a lot of our BIDs, Safe Omaha Streets, Project Extra Mile, our trauma centers, North South Creek BID, and then planning, public works, and design, police, fire, and so on and so forth, as well as the Mayor's Active Living Advisory Committee, Department of Health, and Metro Transit. So we have a very broad spectrum of perspectives and stakeholders in this that are very valuable in how we're kind of steering the ship here. So early on, we had a lot of discussion on kind of how we're going to make decisions, and kind of, so what we did is kind of had an exercise of kind of talking about what our values are and what we need to, we feel like we need to do to get us to Vision Zero down the road. And these were items that were, these are our focuses of, these are areas of focus that we wanted to really focus in on and prioritize in our decision making. So based off a lot of the feedback from our TAC, we came up with these that we all agreed on, which was all modes of transportation is very important. We want to make sure that all modes are identified as being important to be considered in any kind of transportation project, and safety element. Equity, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, is a significant issue that we need to have in the back of our minds when we're making decisions. Data-driven solutions, public input, very valuable. We need that public feedback. Education. So this kind of focuses more into the shared responsibility of all road users, as well as city officials that can influence road design and how people operate on our transportation system. And commitment and accountability. So we wanted to really gain buy-in from all levels of leadership, from the mayor's office through city council, department heads, and so forth, because this is very important when we're talking about aligning funding, policy, processes, and kind of identifying long-term ways to get to where we need to be for us to be able to have the tools we need to reduce fatal and serious crashes on our road. And then last, and again, there's no specific order of all of these. So an urgency is just the last one, but it doesn't mean it's the last. But this is a significant factor that we was mentioned that it has to be included in here, because if there isn't any kind of sense of urgency, it's easy to get very complacent and kind of say, oh, we can wait till the next go around for a grant to do something, or it kind of facilitates that kind of let's hold off on doing this before we do this other project. So urgency is very important. Through the technical advisory committee and all of the data analysis, we reviewed a lot of that information, and there are a lot of kind of trends that were identified. And what we need to do is we need to kind of dig a little bit deeper in some of these issues that were affecting safety on our streets. And so what we did is we went through the main issues, and we kind of put them all up on the board to show everybody. And we were asked to kind of create our own priority list of where we thought, so we couldn't address all of these issues. We were asked to do the top 7. So we were looking at equity, speed, high risk arterial roads, intersections, pedestrians and bicycles, high risk users, occupant protection, impairment, funding, policies and process. So these are all important subject matters that needed further kind of just diving deeper into, to kind of have discussions on how we can address some of these issues. So just based off the feedback from the tech, we itemized those, and the top 7 were the high risk roads, equity, pedestrian, bicycles, speed, intersections, funding, policy and processes, and impairment. And there was some discussion about occupant protection and high risk users, but with occupant protection, it was kind of viewed more as like it's kind of a cut and dry kind of an issue, to where we know what the problem is. We don't have enough people buckling up, and we don't have a primary enforcement law right now. So there is no kind of mechanism to really push people, or to make them feel like they have to use their seatbelt, which if we can get that kind of primary enforcement, that can save a lot of lives down the road, as well as high risk users. It can be lumped in a lot of these. So we kind of decided not to go that route, just to have a specific group on high risk users. So public engagement, that's been kind of an ongoing thing, where it really, however, and when I say ongoing, I mean on the inside, there was a lot of planning and kind of strategizing. And then earlier in the year, we started to actually start phasing in some of our engagement opportunities with the public. And we were very intentional with our plan moving forward. We wanted to kind of go where the people were, instead of having multiple pop-up events and asking people to come to us. And this was decided mainly because we had limited resources to do public engagement for a topic that's very complex and is as far-reaching as the entire city. So we had to be kind of very strategic in how we're going to do this. So we wanted to itemize locations that we thought we could get enough people, or at least have opportunities where people are there that we can talk to them. So we went to Saddle Creek Community Center, Florence Community Center up in North Omaha. We were at the 16th Annual State of North Omaha and State of African Americans, all in January. We were going to be involved with the Keep Kids Alive Drive 25 fundraiser, but that was postponed due to weather. And we've got another couple events scheduled, and one in Midtown next in April. That it's I forgot the name of the fair, but it's like a Safe Families Fair that that gets, I guess, annually close to 5,000 participants. So there's a lot of opportunity to speak with a lot of people and engage them there. And we're going to be continuing to kind of evaluate other options moving forward. One problem that we kind of came across is it's really hard to find locations where things are happening and people are, people are going to be there, and especially in cold weather. So the winter months was kind of a struggle for us to find events. We know once it starts getting warm, that's when everything is, but we needed to get out and start engaging people early on. So That's why we picked where we did, and because we thought that's kind of where strategically, that's where we thought we could get the best exposure with the limited resources. So, and I'm documenting here, we've got another round of engagements coming up. We're wrapping up our first round. We've got 6 more pop-up events through the spring and summer. And then towards the latter half of this process, we'll have an open house and mainly talk about the plan and provide the public the opportunities to give feedback, look over it, and get them even more engaged in the process. And in addition, we also at the beginning of the year came out with our Vision Zero website. So it's been a great landing pad for anyone that's interested in Vision Zero to just learn a little bit about it and provide input. We've gotten that tool up there, which has been very valuable for us. So we've got a survey up here as well. But the give input option has been really great for us to get an understanding of who we're reaching and just kind of hear from what the public thinks about how we can end traffic deaths in Omaha, and giving us an idea of where they've seen issues of safety on our transportation system. And the intention behind all this is to use this data as kind of supplemental feedback for us moving forward as we're making data-based decisions on funding and prioritizing other projects. So some of the things we've learned from our website and the questions we've been asking the public, we had a survey question pretty much asking people their understanding or their knowledge of Vision Zero. We also asked the same question at our pop-up events. And unfortunately, this kind of speaks to the issue that I mentioned earlier about we weren't getting the reach that we wanted to, that we originally planned for. We only had 31 respondents online to this, and we had, I think, another several dozen in person that weren't accounted for on this slide. But in general, people are showing kind of that medium range of knowledge of Vision Zero, more of like they've heard of it, but they don't really know much about it. And we've heard people say that, yeah, where they really like our website because it has brought them kind of up to speed of the intentionality of what we're trying to do. Some of the ideas that were shared with us for any traffic deaths, these are some that we thought were important to note. And the one that topped the list was the designing streets for all forms of transportation. And followed by that is enforcing traffic laws, and then lowering speeds, education, awareness campaigns, changing traffic signal timing, configuration, and so forth. So our engagement map that allows us to drop pins on locations of, where it allows the public to drop pins on locations of concern. It was very helpful for one, kind of showing us, yeah, where the public views issues, which we're using as, again, a way to kind of confirm a lot of what the data is showing, but also it's showing us where we're lacking in our outreach. And really concerning here is we've got a lot of engagement all throughout the city, especially in the Midtown area. But however, kind of in South Omaha, we're not seeing as many locations identified, and even more so in North Omaha. It's pretty much, there's nothing going on there as far as pins of locations of concern. And that's concerning because we know that's where a lot of the fatal and serious crashes are happening, disproportionately so. And we want to get that input. We want to see more dots on there, because that means we're engaging more of the population over there. And once you engage some of the population, the hope is that they'll talk to their friends, their family, their peers, their colleagues about Vision Zero, and then just kind of it kind of spreads that way. So that's an area, like I said, we're not happy about, and we're trying to double down our efforts to increase our outreach and exposure in North Omaha, as well as South Omaha. And just to highlight a few, we had over 200 responses from this survey, and the top one, hands down, was dangerous driving behavior, and followed by street crossing concerns, and then failure to yield to pedestrians and low visibility. So those were our top 4. And this is, so we have been kind of recently doing this, and we've been kind of going out and trying to put up kind of an advertisement poster, something as simple as what you're seeing to the left, just showing off the logo of Vision Zero to catch someone's eye, and then a QR code so people can quickly navigate to the website and get kind of a taste of Vision Zero and what we're trying to do here. I've been working with the mayor's office to really push Vision Zero. The mayor's going to be doing some kind of a press release type of effort in the coming weeks. We've got some media type material that that our consultant has made for us to help educate the media as far as educating them exactly what Vision Zero is, how to talk about it, and how to engage the public, and kind of things not to do as well that really don't help our efforts of changing culture. We had a good write-up on the Omaha World Herald that provided us really good exposure recently. Again, the pop-up meetings, and as I said, the campaign poster. And also, like I said earlier, we still have another round of those coming up. So through February and March, we've got more of those engagements. As I mentioned, we've got a newsletter scheduled to come out very shortly here. The Vision Zero fact sheet will be placed on the website as well. Right now, we kind of had a placeholder document that's kind of just general to Vision Zero. We'll have more of a specific one to Omaha that will be very helpful for people that are looking for that information. In late March, early April, we'll have kind of a draft plan recommendation that we're going to be reviewing internally with our technical advisory committee, as well as our executive leadership. And then in mid-April, we're going to have another round of focus area working groups to kind of really tackle the issues, because again, the intentionality behind the focus area working groups is kind of to identify the issues, kind of put them out there, and not necessarily solve them all right away, but just kind of acknowledge what some of these issues are. And this next round of focus area working groups, the intentionality is to kind of come up with solutions to a lot of these complex issues, and how to move forward to get us to zero. So that's going to be going on. And then, as I said earlier, more pop-up events throughout. And on that note, that's all I had to share with you guys. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. That was really great. Folks can either put questions in the chat or raise your hand. While everyone is thinking about questions, I'll just kind of filter through some of the ones previous. Somebody asked if the map you showed was from the Connect Omaha Active Mobility Master Plan outreach, and then some follow-up questions about the connection between this plan and that plan that kind of seem like they're happening somewhat parallel. If you could speak to that.
The map you're referring to is the one that showed all the dots and the kind of donut hole. No, that's something that came right out of our technical advisory committee that we shared with them. So that came from this process. And the active mobility planning process, it's been a great opportunity for these two plans to kind of go and be developed kind of at the same time, because kind of knowing what we're trying to accomplish with our active mobility plan, it kind of helps put a lot more emphasis into the importance of Vision Zero and the topics that we're talking about, because they're so connected. So some of the feedback that we get from the active mobility plan is kind of it's echoed in our action planning process and the technical advisory committee. So we hear a lot of similar messaging, which is very helpful, because that's reinforcing things that we need to hear and we should be doing.
That sounds good. Jeff Quant asked, did you say Omaha Vision Zero would be at the Omaha Health Fair March 25th through 26th? I think just a clarification on kind of the next pop-up y'all are going to have.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Someone in the chat asked if you all would be at the Omaha Health Fair on March 25th through 26th. I think more of a question about where's kind of the next place in the community you're going to be.
Yeah, the next one will be, let me double check here. So like we have the Keep Kids Alive Drive 25 coming up here in the next 3 weeks. That's, I think, middle of March. And then we have it's not that health fair that you mentioned, but it's the other one that I mentioned that's actually in Exarban Village. Sorry, I forgot the exact name of it.
No worries. Yeah, if you happen to find it, we can throw it in the chat. Tyler asked, will anything produced from this effort have funding tied to it or require change in development, or will the action plan primarily result in recommendations to follow? So maybe a little bit about the implementation plan for this.
Oh, and it's the National Safety Council Healthy Kids Day. That's the event that I was referring to. And that's a little bit later in April. And also we're going to be doing a fish fry coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be posting that once we get the official confirmation on which weekend we're going to be doing that. So yeah, sorry, I was blanking on the next upcoming event. So regarding the question that you mentioned, so the recommendations are, it's hard for me to answer because we haven't gotten to that point. I mean, the goal is for this to happen organically and for the group to kind of come up with these answers as a group through just communication and listening to each other about the issues. So the goal is to hopefully, yeah, find some concrete solutions for some complicated issues, find ways for us to find revenue that previously was allocated somewhere else possibly, and redistributing that in another way that could be creative enough for us to use sooner than later. So it's really, it's going to come down to really, I think, just again, being creative with how we're addressing these issues, because there's no silver bullet for any of these. And when we're looking at Vision Zero, it's accomplished through safe systems. So what that means is there's a lot of layers of safety that need to be talked about and addressed. And there's not just one layer of safety that's going to get us to zero. It's working with those multiple layers and strengthening all of them. And that's going to be done through getting funding for safety projects, but also redesigning streets, making sure the community and is aware that we need that understanding that it's a shared responsibility. Road users have a role in this as well, in addition to the city and our design engineers and planners have. So it's trying to identify how we can all work together, how we can leverage resources and knowledge to get to that outcome that we all want. Sorry if that was a lot of just babbling, but it's a long way of saying it's complicated.
Tobin, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Jeff, I know it's early or midway in this process, but if you had one process or thing to implement and to then to go ask for funding, what do you think would be the number one process or implementation that you would like to ask for funding as it exists right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. But I think it's important to kind of back up and kind of look at a bigger picture, and what that picture is just the culture of safety that we need to build in the city. Currently the culture is speed, which is the core of the problem, and we need to kind of understand that has a very fatal trade-off, and we need to kind of identify policies that can align with a different culture of safety that can help find money for projects that are safety related that, again, may not have been there before, but it comes down to kind of intentionality of how do we identify the policies that are going to help us, and how do we come up with policies that are going to sustain us in the future? Because when we're talking about funding, yeah, we can try to find money for one project or two projects here and there and try to get stuff done as quickly as possible. But at the end of the day, it's about sustaining safety. And in order to do that, we need to have the policies embedded in there. So not only this administration, but the next administration, the administration after that, can continue to replicate what we want to be doing moving forward. So we're continuing our progression is to get to that safety culture that we want. So again, I think the short answer is we need to come up with the right policies to get us the funding that we need. So yeah.
Thank you.
We had a question with a lot of upvotes in the chat. Amanda asked, has the Blackstone pilot been successful? Did the changes on Farnham help reduce crashes between people and vehicles?
Yeah, 100% yes. It's been a great success, and we're actually kind of deliberating internally to see. There were originally for that project, there were three kind of levels of restrictions that we could have done for that project, and we went first with the least restrictive, and that's had a significant safety improvement for all users. It's slowed vehicles down, given exposure to people that are trying to cross. So there's much more compliance with the yield rates. And so there's a conversation right now is, okay, this is working well. Do we want to kind of go to the next step up and be a little bit more restrictive by adding some more turn restrictions that could provide even more safety for vulnerable road users? So that's kind of a discussion we're having right now. Nothing's been finalized, but yeah, we are considering kind of moving beyond what we have there.
I'm looking at the chat. Derek asked, obviously we're not the first city to have our mayor sign the Vision Zero pledge. Other cities have done this. Do you have any examples of concrete policies you've seen implemented in other cities that we should be doing right now in Omaha?
I do. I don't think it's helpful to share those, because again, it's what policy works for one municipality may not work for the other, and there may you have to have a lot of things aligned for things to work. I think what it comes down to is aligning. I think what most cities have found that we want to replicate is that, again, it goes back to creating that culture of safety to where we're all on board and we all understand what we're doing. And I think that is the most important step that we have to get established here. And with Vision Zero, it's really easy to get ahead of yourself and like, oh, we should be doing this, this, and this, because every other city's doing that. But the first step is to make sure everyone is on board with what we're doing and understands what we're doing and why we're doing it, and understands that this is a complicated process. And we need to identify the issues as well. And even more important is identifying the solutions to those issues. So it's, again, culture change takes a long time, and to sustain that, we need to change a lot of minds, both publicly as well as internally with elected officials, with internal staff. And I mean, I'm not saying, safety has always been a priority for the city, but it's taken a different kind of perspective on safety that is a little different for some people internally. That again, it's natural for them to kind of slowly want to ease into this.
So we had another question referencing when Omaha adopted the complete streets policy. That was a policy that lots of folks in ModeShift are really excited that the city adopted. We won a lot of awards nationally for it. And I think folks feel like if that had been implemented, it would have put us, well on the way to Vision Zero. But it was accepted as a policy without any enforcement rather than an ordinance. And I guess wondering what kind of commitment you felt from the city around how to not kind of follow the same path for this action plan that Complete Streets policy kind of ended up with.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that is going to be key for us is we do have a great complete street policy, but and you spoke to the issues. It doesn't have the teeth necessary, and it's also not applied citywide. There's a lot of holes on where it's applied and where it should also be applied, and it's still relatively new for us. We see it as a pretty much the boat to get us to where we need to be. And it's all about strengthening that policy, improving it, and finding ways for it to adapt to how the city functions. Because I mean, there's safety in all projects throughout the city. I mean, whenever a utility opens a road or anytime there's an opportunity for a development to happen, we've got opportunities where we should be applying our complete street policy to any of that to make sure that we're not putting back the same infrastructure that we have right now. And we know there are risks with doing that. So we need to take opportunities that we have when things present itself and kind of tackle those and jump on those opportunities, because once that makes sense, but also too, it's more affordable for us. We save money by doing that because a lot of resources are being used right then and there. And instead of having to mobilize utilities and other equipment and funding to do a safety project again after a utility is opened or a development has happened, or if just streets resurfacing. So it's a lot of coordination and communicating with different departments on when things are happening on the street and kind of aligning that communication. So we have this vision of like, okay, how do we align Vision Zero, our complete streets, and apply that to all the things that are happening. So it's very complicated. We understand that it's something we need to do, and we're working to find that solution of how to apply it citywide.
Somebody asked in the chat for your thoughts on traffic enforcement cameras and if that's a strategy that this plan is taking a look at, or if there's a chance Omaha might pilot it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a proven safety countermeasure that a lot of cities are doing. It's just, again, it comes down to, is there the willpower and is it, there's a political component to that, and it's kind of there are a lot of hurdles that we have to address, and there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and a lot of people need to buy in for us to go that route, because it is a very controversial thing, and if it's not if we don't take it on in the right way and again educate people why we're doing this, it can really backfire on us. So a lot of really deep conversations have to be had, and a lot of internal education has to be had for us to go that way. But because yeah, there's laws in existence right now with the state that prohibit us from doing some automated enforcement. So that's another problem. So really, I mean, it's an option if there is the public support for it, and that I don't think in my opinion, I don't think that's there yet. But that doesn't mean that it can't get there.
Alex, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess I was just wondering for yourself or even with the committee, is there any particular consensus on the desire or effectiveness of painted crosswalks?
You're referring to like kind of art or just different colors?
No, just the regular stripe that appears some places.
Yeah. I'm sorry, were you asking just what my opinion is, or?
Well, that and like if the committee together, if there's any particular consensus, like they think we need them or they think they're useless, or, you know, any sort of discussion that's happened with that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And I know that's an area of contention, and it's brought up frequently. And it's complicated because on one side, there is a need for that kind of striping to call out where pedestrians are crossing. However, just paint alone is not going to create the safety improvement necessary, especially just based off context of the road. There's a lot of intentional trying to be conservative as far as putting those out there, because again, there's different environments provide different complex issues. So just by putting a painted crosswalk out there doesn't necessarily mean it's safe. It could be a 4-lane road and you only have painted crosswalk there. You're actually leading the pedestrian into an issue with kind of one car stopping while the next car doesn't know the pedestrian's coming, and then they walk in front of the car and then walk in front of the vehicle that doesn't know they're coming and they get hit. And that's kind of was the issue with Blackstone and why the city didn't want to do anything until we actually changed the configuration of the street and how it operated and got it to one way in each direction with a center turn lane, because that set us up for that kind of safety that we need to provide that kind of safety. So again, there's a layer of there's multiple layers of safety that you have to be taken into consideration. I mean, we would be great. We would love to have painted crosswalks throughout the city again, but the issue is there's resources and limited resources, and where are we going to use those limited resources? And again, if we are going to paint a crosswalk on a location that has some added safety concerns because there's higher speeds or the road is wider, and there's other features that we feel like we need to include, like rapid flashing beacons, pet refuge signage, or pet crossing signs on the side of the road, or if we've escalated up even farther up the pole to pedestrian hybrid beacons. So it's definitely being talked about. There's a lot of interest in doing more of that, but again, it's based off context.
Okay, thank you.
Stuart and Laura, your hand is raised.
All right, I'm getting a little confused, I think. Are you talking about changing attitudes in order to change behavior? When you were talking earlier, that's kind of what I interpreted it as, that you want to work on changing people's attitudes before you actually change their behavior.
Well, I think it's a significant component to.
Okay, do you have social scientists involved at all? Because social science research tells us that you change behavior before, and that changes people's attitudes. And it's actually, you've shown that with Blackstone, because it's you changed the way people drove there and then it worked. And so I think too often some of these programs work on changing attitudes when really it works in the other direction much better. Civil rights is a good example of that. But so I'm just wondering if you've involved any social scientists that have to see, because it has to be both, yes, but what science shows is that one is actually better than the other.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess maybe I didn't explain myself well enough. And that example you gave me is great, because what I'm kind of getting at is with changing attitudes and behaviors is we're going to be proposing to do things that are different that the public has not seen before. And there's a lot of hesitancy and negative thoughts with that. Like, this is Omaha, we don't do stuff like that. So there's that mentality that we have to go up against. But then when we do these things and we have the data to prove that, hey, we actually made this safer, here's the data. Now, public, what do you think about this? We really want to do this throughout the city where we know there are problems. And when you can show that to the public, they're going to buy into that more, and they're going to say, hey, we want that here. Or if we do a roundabout over here, which is proven to significantly improve safety for all modes, if we show data on this one location and show that, hey, for us to get to zero, we're likely going to have tough conversations on the fact that, like, this is a huge tool that we should be using. We need the public to buy into this because this is one way forward to get us there. So that's kind of what I meant by changing people's attitudes about safety and creating that safety cultures.
So you're talking about an interplay between the two. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for answering that.
Yeah, I think also some of what you're speaking to, Jeff, is getting brought up in the chat a lot, which is the political will to get this done. And I think there are lots of folks in this room that have been really excited about, potential changes, just to have them kind of fall through because decision makers haven't made it a priority. And it sounds like, a lot of the communication you all are trying to do is to try to, get more political will, but I don't know if you have any more thoughts on, how to get elected officials and folks that, work in the city to make this as a priority to implement.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, that's a problem that every city struggles with. And again, I think it kind of goes back to that culture of safety that we need to create and sustain. And that means educating our elected officials on why we're doing things, and as well as at the same time educating the public, because the public is the one that they elect the elected officials. So if the public's saying we want this, and that elected official is going to listen to them. Whereas also the elected officials' responsibility is also to kind of educate the public on these decisions that are being made, because a lot of times if the culture isn't right in the public, they need to have that education to kind of explain to the public, this is why we're doing it, this is why I'm voting for this, because it is at the end of the day going to get us to the safety goal of zero in the long term. So it's getting that kind of buy-in, that kind of understanding on both sides.
Excellent. We just have a few more minutes, so if folks have any other questions in the chat. I wanted to ask, appreciated the transparency and who's on the technical advisory committee. And I know we saw, names of our peers kind of in this advocacy work, like Keep Kids Alive and Safe Streets. And I think, all of us are really passionate about this and want to know, less as individuals, but maybe more as a group, as Mode Shift, what are the ways that we can support this plan and the efforts that the team is going through, not being on that advisory committee, but maybe in other ways. Not sure if you have any other ideas for how we might support you in this work moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is just continue to do what you're doing right now, is be advocates for Vision Zero, provide opportunities for the public to learn, because really we want everyone to know what Vision Zero. At the end of the day, it'd be great if everyone in the city has heard of Vision Zero and has an idea of what it is, because that right there is a seed in everyone's mind of this idea of that fatalities are not something that we should be living with on our transportation system. So, I mean, if you guys continue to promote Vision Zero and try to educate people around you, that's very helpful for what we're trying to accomplish here.
Stuart had a question that I think is a good one. I'm kind of curious too. Many of the major arteries in Omaha are state-owned thoroughfares. Does the state have a Vision Zero policy, and has the city reached out to them for any cooperation?
Yeah, so we're constantly in communication with the state. And yes, the state has jurisdiction on a lot of our major arterials, and that is going to be a challenge as far as kind of some of the design strategies that a lot of Vision Zero cities do can be kind of problematic, because the state has certain design standards and minimums that we have to abide by at this moment. So there are a lot of complex hurdles that we have to go through if we were to kind of go against any kind of standard. And that's a discussion that we're having right now, because it's something that's going to be persistent throughout this entire process is how do we kind of address, because the state does have a towards zero commitment. They've started to develop a complete street policy. So that right there is a great added foot in the door to kind of help kind of shine a light on the need to change minds and change philosophies of how our roads can be designed and operated on. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can come to mutual agreements on, I make compromises on what we'd like to do, but also provide the kind of service that they still expect to see on their roads.
Excellent, thank you. Approaching the 8 o'clock hour here, just want to thank you, Jeff, for joining us and giving us this presentation. Had some folks in the chat echo that sentiment, and I'm really excited to have you moving this forward and making progress on these initiatives that are really important to everyone on this call. So thanks so much for your time. Any final thoughts, questions from the group? Lots of high fives, thumbs up. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Liz to kind of do some announcements to close us out.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. Thanks for hosting. Thanks so much, Jeff, for joining us. It's great to dig in on Vision Zero, and hopefully folks connected with the links in the chat or can follow. We will keep following up and encouraging people to do the surveys and things. And we will look forward to, yeah, please keep us posted on future public events and ways to be involved. Yeah, I just shared in the chat. I just made sure to add, I think, most of our upcoming events to our website, and I will make sure to update those soon, but it's just modeshiftomaha.org/events. We will try to keep that updated with our upcoming team meetings. There's the happy hour that Grace mentioned earlier on March 16th. And then we will be posting our member meeting that'll be the 4th Wednesday in March, which I think will be also the 22nd, with Kevin Carter of the city. So we'll learn more about the other planning process on the active mobility master plan that some people mentioned in the chat. And I think that's it. Yeah, but thanks everyone. I think we can end the recording, and then I guess if people want to stay on and chat, I'd be willing to stay on for